let's get started. I'm super excited to have you all here and super excited about who is here as well. So everyone, warm welcome. I'm so thrilled to do this webinar with you today, and I'm honored that you took some time off. I know that you are very busy. And one of the things that I often hear after this webinar is that I wish I would have known about this earlier. And that is true also for me, because if I would have known this, just a tiny bit about this when I was a teenager, I would have treated myself and I would have treated others a lot more different. And I know people who would have been much better off in life as well if teachers and students could learn about this earlier. For example, when I went to primary school, I had 2 kids in my class who were really, let's say, hopeless. Like, we really thought that they were so stupid and, I mean, out of control, always in constant conflict with the teachers. And then when we were 14, this group, our class, we were asked to do something practical, to show our class something practical. And I remember I didn't really know what I could teach them because I wasn't very practical. But I also remember that I was much more worried about these 2 kids. What could they teach us? Like, that is how we saw them. Well, the week of presentations came, and I can only recall that one presentation made by these boys. So they said that they wanted to teach us how to connect loudspeakers with lamps so that the lamps would blink with the beat of the music. And they had brought in all the equipment to the classroom. They went through each step with us, connected the cables and all that. I didn't understand much of it, but I saw them. And then they closed the blinds, they shut off the lights, and they turned on the music. And the classroom just turned into a disco club. And I was like stunned, impressed, because about their performance and the presentation, because I saw 2 kids that I had never seen before. 2 confident and talented kids that shared their knowledge. And maybe it doesn't sound like a big deal to you, but it was the first time after many years together that the class saw them showing off their strengths. There they were, full of passion. And how come that we hadn't seen them until that day? Well, because school was so square and forced them into boxes where they couldn't fit. They didn't have enough opportunity in school to act and grow in the areas where they were strong. Instead, they were constantly failing because they had to perform in areas where they didn't really have a chance. And this is why self-awareness is so important. This is why inclusion and diversity is so important. So when we find ourselves in a place where we don't fit in, where we can't fulfill the expectations, or where the surroundings don't bring out the best of us, when we're not in a growth environment, if we then at least have the awareness and confidence, we will be able to move away from there, because we know that there are better places waiting for us. But when we don't get it, when we get stuck and lose confidence, we become victims. So as individuals, we have responsibility. We can't wait for our employers to step up when it comes to inclusion, but we can do our best to choose where we want to spend our work days. So for the workplaces that does not, or the workplace that does not apply inclusion and diversity, it will eventually lose out on many opportunities that people who work, think, feel differently would bring to the table. So I carry this with me in my role as a leader and a trainer. The experience from school helped me realize that the same person who can struggle in one area can excel in another. And this is also why I keep it so close to my heart, because I've seen it. And when I was a manager, I always trusted my team members to do the things their way, because then they did the better job. But maybe even more important, it empowered them and they were more motivated and happy. And that's when they can also be much more productive for the team and the company too. So I've seen the difference between struggle and passion. I have also lived it myself. I've tried to be great at something that was hard, something that I didn't enjoy. I pushed myself instead of following my instinct. I got a master in economics, a bachelor in statistics, just because I thought that was important to me, the diploma or a title. And during my career, I've also done it, that I have struggled. I have been thinking that success has to be hard, otherwise it's a hobby. And this is one of the big myths that I really wish to reveal to you today. Biggest lies that I wish to reveal to you. So, having said that, I hope that you, after this session, can see your strengths in a new light, and that you have realized how important it is for you to focus right there. And for you being a colleague or even a manager, I want to stress how critical it is that we allow and actively include all different types of personalities and strengths in our workplace. That's when we can reach higher engagement and productivity together. So today you will learn about yourself and others. I'm going to break down to you how we act, react, and interact in certain ways, and why you shouldn't try to be a copy of anyone else. And other people are not crazy just because they are different from you. Instead, you will see the value that they bring through their uniqueness too. But let me introduce myself first. I think you all know my name is Sofia Karlsson. I have recently transitioned out from the financial sector, and now I focus 100% on what has been my passion for several years: leadership development and personal growth. I'm a talent coach and leadership trainer specialized in helping professionals grow their career confidence through increased self-awareness. I help teams and organizations see the talents they already have, because I believe that we all have so much more potential, but oftentimes the self-awareness and the confidence is missing. So I help with that. But when we understand how our priorities, our values steer us, and we realize and admit that we have blind spots, we also become more grounded. We realize that all styles are equally important. So this is a message to you as an individual, but it's a fact that companies and organizations have to recognize. And all of this is so extremely important because as our own self-awareness and self-respect increases, we also become more tolerant and inclusive towards others. And guess what? That increases employee engagement. So this webinar is about, I'm going to start to share the screen with you a bit now. So, all right. So this webinar is about how to discover the power within yourself, within your colleagues, and within your team, and why we can only do that through authenticity and inclusion. And today you will get the basic understanding of what it means to have different personalities and working styles in a team. I use the personality assessment tool DISC when I work with clients. It's one of many different tools, but it's my favorite because I find it very easy to understand, and I've seen that it's very accurate. And since a couple of years, I'm certified trainer and consultant on DISC. But DISC itself is not the important part of this presentation. It's just a tool that I use to be able to describe to you that people are unique, that people have patterns, and that we complement each other. The teams and companies that win in the long run are those that really cherish and encourage people to be different also over the personalities and behaviors. That's where people actually want to work. So to make it really clear, this webinar is about three things: self-awareness, natural strengths, and blind spots. But let's warm up with a poll, a question, and I will let you pick 2 answers because I'm very nice today. So here we go. I will take all 4 options, and then I would like you to write in the chat which one of the 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can pick 2, that is more accurate for you. So how do you relate to others? 1, I love mingling and networking with people. 2, I like to behave correctly. I think it's important that other people do that too. 3, I'm a good listener. People often come to me when they need to talk. 4, let me move my face there. Maybe you have my face over this like just as I did, then you can just move me. I enjoy a good debate and I'm quite competitive. All right, so who are you? Write in the chat who you are. I will stop sharing so that everyone can see the chat. For me, yeah, Lindsay, I'm with you. I'm 1 and 3 as well. So many are 1 and 3. And you know what? That could be because, oh, this is so cool. Hi, Goss. Good that you could join. I saw that you were writing in LinkedIn. All right. Hi, Mada. Okay, let's take the next one. I will share my screen again. Here we go. Who are you in a team environment? 1, I often take charge and I try to be the leader. 2, I'm ready to support, but I will not try to be the leader. 3, I ensure a strong team dynamic and I encourage everyone to be involved and feel included. 4, if I can choose, I prefer to work alone. So who are you here? Let us know. All right, and I am 3 plus 1 here. Oh, see, she's 1. I knew it. One of the best bosses I had. Okay, good. Thanks for letting us get to know each other a little bit here. It's very, very fun. Okay, that was the last question. So what I try to demonstrate for you is that the answers you give reveals something about you. And I want to clarify that people have patterns and that you have an advantage when you start to understand that, both about yourself and others. And just like when you see a zebra next to a leopard, you can expect certain things when you recognize people. So you can learn what encourages, stresses, angers, and pleases your different colleagues. I mean, doesn't that sound great? People are actually predictable. There are connections between the things that motivate you and scare you, between your strengths and your blind spots. And there are reasons why we do the things we do. So why is this important for you as a professional then? Well, it helps you to see your value and greatness. If you don't see that, how else will you be able to market yourself, to sell yourself when you go for an interview, when you negotiate a salary, or just when you interact with people? If you don't see how you contribute and the importance of the value you add, then how will you get the next job, the next promotion or responsibility? This awareness that you will gain will give you the career confidence that you need to be both successful and feel fulfilled. But maybe even more important, it's when you have someone in front of you, next to you, above you, that doesn't believe in you. Somebody who puts you down. And I think we've all been there. We have the colleague who always tries to master us, the manager who doesn't bet on us, or maybe even the parent or the partner that always criticizes us. And that's when it's even more important that we hold on to that self-esteem and confidence that comes with the awareness that we are important because we have a role to play, which is the role of being ourselves. to shine by showing our natural strengths and contributing with what we do best. Like I mentioned earlier, I saw this already when I went to school, but back then I didn't understand it the way I do today. So today, we will talk about the DISC tool, which many of you have most likely heard about before, but I dare to say that you have probably just scratched the surface of it. That's how it started for me, at least. I took the DISC assessment for the first time 12 years ago, but it was only when I took it the second time 6 years later that I really understood it. Because the first time I just received the report and it told me that I had a color. And I had a different color than from most people in the team where I worked, a color that wasn't highly valued by the manager that I had at that time. So I felt already very inadequate there, and the report just came back to confirm it. This is, of course, a very good example of when things can go wrong, because if my team at that time would have worked with this and had trainings on this together, we would all have understood that it's the diversity also over the DISC indicators that makes a team very successful. Everyone should not be and do the same things. But I got a second chance, and that's when I had the opportunity to do the DISC assessment and work with it through regular management trainings. And I brought it with me to my team later on. And this is when I understood that the whole point is to build on our strengths and that all personality styles are vital. But please remember, as we go through this, DISC is absolutely not a tool for judgment or putting labels on people. As soon as you start to put labels on people, you are already making a distance between you. We are here to complement each other and see how we can reach success together. So when I was leading teams, everyone that I worked with took the assessment, and this brought the whole team to a new awareness level. We spoke about how we acted, reacted, and interacted. And this helped us build an allowing and safe environment where people were aware of how we impacted each other, and then how we could better communicate to be understood, depending on who we spoke to. And from all the hundreds of people that I know who has taken the assessment, I have only met one person who didn't agree with the conclusion after his assessment. But the funny thing is that what he didn't agree on is something that the people around him could see very clearly. And this is what we call a blind spot. It's when we act in a way that is visible to others, but we don't see it. And you will always have blind spots, but you can make them smaller. The blind spot is the gap between your intention and the impact it has. You say and do something, but the people around you perceive it differently. Through my trainings, you can learn more about this so that you can minimize the area of your blind spots, because oftentimes it's not the most charming part of our personality. So you want it to be as small as possible. And stay until the end, because I will let you know how you can learn more about this after this session. So enough words from me about how DISC contributes to a happier career and more productive teams. You will only be convinced once you start to experience it with your own eyes. So let's get to it. But first, I just want to see if anyone has any questions or comments. And like I wrote, feel free to write in the chat or unmute if you have any comments or questions. Otherwise, I will just move on. Okay, we will move on. So, I will share my screen again, sorry. There we go. Okay, like I mentioned earlier, I love DISC because it's simple. You have 4 styles to remember, and they form the acronym DISC. So it's dominant, influencing, steady, and compliant. So only 4 styles to, to remember. And then we have this. Don't get stressed about this sheet. You don't have to note everything down. I will share it with you afterwards. It's a lot of information. But first, there's a distinction between the outgoing and reserved people, or extroverts and introverts, if you prefer. Then it also splits us up in the 2 categories, task-oriented and people-oriented. So you only need to learn about those 4 different styles, but we are all a combination of all 4 of them to different degrees, and that is what makes us so unique. Now, I will go through each style with you and you will learn the basics. But today specifically, we will focus on the strengths. There's so much more to say about communication, motivation, fears, and relationships, but that's for another time. And maybe you already have an idea what your main style is. Then I encourage you to look out for the other styles as well, because as I said, we are a combination of all 4 of them, depending on the situation we are in. But you're also here to learn more about the strengths of your colleagues. So think about who you can see around you when I'm explaining the different styles, so that you can better understand how also other people add value to the team. So here comes a breakdown of each style. We will go deeper into the specific strengths after this first round. So the D, the dominating style. If this is your main style, you have a desire to be in control. You make quick decisions, you are direct and focus on the results, and the D is always ready for a challenge. And the universe was very kind to the rest of the population when they created the D-wide people, because they make up a very small part of the population, and still they are dominating, around 5 to 10%. They are driven by authority, they like change, they are comfortable with direct confrontation, and they treasure loyalty because of the specific fear that they have. You recognize the D at work when you take a decision for your area of responsibility, and still the D will anyway come in and try to change and control it. Now, Ds have great strengths, no doubt about it, and we will get to them. The Ds are impressive people when the self-awareness is there. So the greatest fear of the D is being taken advantage of, and that's why they try to control the situation. And that means that they hate to look like fools. They hate the feeling of losing a bargain. They fear being tricked and used, and this is why they treasure loyalty. This is my husband, by the way. He can't take orders. He has to think that he's in charge, otherwise he's not motivated. So share with us, write a D in the chat if you think that you have a big part of D in your style. I'm also partly a D, by the way, so there's some strong opinions in our house. So write in the chat, who do we see here? Yeah, we have some Ds with us. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Milena. Okay, let's move on to the influencers. These are the people we notice easily because they talk a lot and they use a lot of hand gestures and facial expressions, and they love attention. They influence and persuade others by expressing themselves. They are spontaneous, they're friendly, and they make up about 15 to 20% of the population. So not that many, but we notice them very, very easily. The eyes are always open for new connections. They like the friendly environment. They're on the go. They are emotional and transparent. You always know what mood they are in. They're great storytellers, encouragers. These are the people in your team that you want to convince first when you're introducing a change. They are early adapters. These are the clients you want to satisfy first, because they will tell everyone how great you are. So make sure that they like you, because they will also let everyone know when they don't like you. But if that happens, don't worry. The eyes are always open for a rebound. They will forgive you immediately if you tell them how great and important they are to you. And their greatest fear is, of course, rejection and loss of approval. If you reject an I, they don't like you anymore. I'm mostly an I, and this was so real to me when I was younger. My fear of rejection steered so many of my actions and feelings when I was young. If it's in a work environment and the I starts to feel that they have a loss of approval, what's ironic is that they will use the verbal approach when they start to feel that there is a rejection going on. So they don't really realize when it's time to zip it either. Write an I in the chat if this is about you, if you have a lot of I in your style. Yeah, I have it. Oh, sorry, you're still on D. I'm so sorry. Here we go. There you go. Thank you. It was the same for everyone. My mistake. So here you go. Persuasive, spontaneous, encouraging, seek spotlight. And they try to influence and persuade others. Yeah. Okay. Sorry for that. Now we go over to the S, which you all can see now. Here, the next style then is the steady S. They are team-oriented, very loyal, a cooperative and trusting atmosphere is very important to them. And that is even driving their career decisions. The S's prioritize harmony over being right. They could decline a nice job offer if they don't think that the company will offer a friendly environment. You could even see it in the interviews. Some people ask in interviews how the team environment and how the company is, because it's really important for them. They don't ask it just because it's a minor thing. They really, really want to know. And compared to the D's, the I's, and compared to the D's and the I's, the S's are slow to start. They are serious procrastinators. But once they get started, they are really great at follow through. And it's estimated that around 60 to 70% of the population is S-wired. And these are the people who keep the wheel turning and ensure a friendly atmosphere. Get them on your team. At one point in my previous job, I hired two persons at the same time. One was 19 years old, another one was 56. They are both S-style, and immediately they started to contribute massively to a better spirit in the office. And they liked each other from day one. So it's typical S-style. And the greatest fear for them is the loss of security. They don't like change. They will be the last one to accept a reorganization or if you need to change premises. But if you can get an influencer to convince them that it's a good change, then they can slowly be converted. And once you have them, you'll have them forever. They stay with you as long as you make them feel safe. And if you lose their trust, they will withdraw from you, but they won't tell you about it because they don't want to confront you. So write an S in the chat if you feel that this was about you. Don't be shy. Take your time. We love you. Yes, Madalena, S. Thank you. Okay, last but not least. Our C-wired compliant friends. They follow rules, they are on time, analytical, not at all spontaneous. Their desk, their home, even their basement is very organized, might even have labels. I mean, my garage could use some help from a C person. Oh, and if you give them information, you can be sure that it is correct. Don't bet against the C-wired person. You will lose. Assumptions and gut feeling is not for the C. They make up about 15 to 20% of the population. I love working with a C-wired because being an ID myself, I can't succeed without them. The C's work best in an environment that honors logic and facts. They are compliant, conscientious, accurate, detail-oriented. They love perfection, sometimes so much that they get stuck. Ever heard about analysis paralysis? That's a real C-style disorder. And their greatest fear is criticism. Of course, they take it personal when they have done everything to get it right and then they get criticized. But there is also no one else who criticizes others more than the C. They notice everything. My mom, she has a big portion of C in her. And when my parents have repairs or renovations going on in the house and handymen come to do the work, it always ends in the same way. When they are ready and leave the house, my mom starts the inspection, and it's never good enough. In fact, she will improve the work. She will take a brush or a hammer to fix whatever wasn't flawless before. So write a C in the chat if you think that this is a lot about you. Thanks, Rafael. Thank you so much. Okay, now we know a little bit about each style. Before we dig deeper into our strengths, I would like to hear what you have picked up so far. If you have anything you can unmute or write in the chat if there is anything specific. Otherwise, I will just move on. I will honor your time. So I will share the screen again. All right. Now, so as I said, as a D, now I speak straight to the Ds here. You're a great decision taker. The more D you have in your style, the more decisive you are. And this is a fantastic trait. Decisions have to be taken if we want to move forward, right? And remember that a very small part of the population has this as their main style. So if you are a D, use this to add value, because most people don't want to take decisions. 60 to 70% are S, and they prioritize harmony. They try to find consensus, which is nice, but not always ideal. And I spoke to a client recently, and she's so frustrated about her manager because he's afraid to rock the boat. He doesn't take any decisions, and that's a problem for his team. They need to know what he wants, where they are going. But be careful. Just because you are a fearless decision taker doesn't mean that you need to take all the decisions based on your own opinion and research, because these can also be perceived as sloppy and rough when they are too quick. So use this strength in a wise way so that you are being appreciated for not wasting our time, for helping the team to move on, and for not letting anything stop you. Another thing that is good about the D is that you are direct and not afraid to take the tough conversations. You're not going to go and hide when it's time to share an opinion, right? Again, most people are not like you. Here, the importance of self-awareness comes in, and empathy. You are not afraid of confrontation, but most people don't like it. So they don't tell you when they disagree with you, because you are ready with your feedback doesn't mean that people around you will run to you for theirs. Actually, you might be the last one to receive feedback because it might seem confrontational that every meeting with you ends up in a confrontation, and you might be the last one to receive feedback because of that. So again, we perceive things differently depending on our style. You might think it's a conversation that you brush off a minute later. The other person might go home that day to tell their spouse that they had a conflict at work. So if all of this could be true to you, don't worry. All we need is love. It's true. Self-awareness is love. You have a fantastic personality. You can bring yourself and your team to success, but no one does it alone. You can have a harsh style maybe in the short run, but if you want to work in a sustainable team where each person develops and work on high productivity, then you have to ensure that people are not intimidated by you. 80% of the population works best when they feel accepted and appreciated. Most people need encouragement and harmony. They hate criticism. So they take it personal and hard. Some feel rejected, maybe so much that they will withdraw, and their fear of making new mistakes will hinder their productivity. Something else that is great about the D style is that you are competitive and you are goal getters. You get fired up and energetic when you meet resistance. And that's awesome and something you should be proud of. It's your motivator. But again, use it to win, not to lose relationships. Share this energy in a positive way to pump up your team and your colleagues. Try not to compete against colleagues. Team up to reach common goals. So as a D, you have amazing qualities that stick out. They are very needed and even rare. People rely on you, but never let your strength tip over and become too strong, because that's when they will sabotage for you, and this is your blind spot. So these, you notice that I try to shake you up a little bit, but it's just because I want to wake you up, because we want to work with you. The best is to talk to people, ask them how they perceive you, but you have to promise them that you genuinely want to know so that you can improve and become more inclusive. And what I'm always preaching is that we have to build on our strengths and be aware of our weaknesses. We have to learn what our blind spots are, because we will lack awareness in some situation. But as a D, you're a great visionary. You are outgoing, confident, extremely productive because you focus on the results. And typical leader characteristics, right? So when you ensure that you have facts and little risk, when you take a decision, when you have listened to the people around you before you move forward, if you can slow down so that you have the people with you instead of behind you, then you will be an amazing leader and colleague. John Maxwell, he teaches us that there are 3 things we ask ourselves before we decide to follow somebody. Can she help me? Does she care about me? And can I trust her? And if you as a colleague can show your colleagues, if you can show your team, your boss, that you can help them and that you care about them and that they can trust you, then you're home. Don't be afraid to show your style. Don't let this awareness about your own style make you insecure, but be humble, because your uniqueness can both make you and break you. Let's talk about the eyes, the strengths of the eyes now. I think you get it now, yeah. So the more I you have in your style, the more verbal and persuasive you are. If you have very little I in your style, it means that you are more withdrawn and reserved. As an I, you're a wonderful person. You are generous, creative, charismatic, enthusiastic, comfortable in the spotlight. And this is what makes you so approachable. That's why you can be so influential. And you are not in majority, but we see and hear you everywhere. So it's fun to hang out with the eyes. You often find them in groups because other eyes also like to hang out with the eyes. In the team, they are great encouragers. They motivate others to achieve more. They have a positive sense of humor, which helps a lot in stressful and difficult times. And they volunteer for jobs, but they also overpromise and overcommit. I think maybe we have all seen that. Not so great at follow through like the S's. They are following through. And in contrast to the C's, the I's see the best in people. Go to the I when you need a boost. And if you are an I, listen, your strength comes so natural that it's often overlooked by yourself and not taken for a strength. You might not realize how extremely important it is to build on this quality. Most people don't have this style, so you are needed. Don't be afraid to shine. Be the cheerleader for the D when they need the energy to move towards their goal. Be the encourager and motivator that other I's really need. The S, they need you to get started and to feel accepted. And the C, like that. You can bring the spotlight to the C. Tell the world about their great job, because they don't like to brag about themselves. They wish sometimes that they could be more like you. So invite them in your energy. And this ability, good Linda, this ability of yours is not a minor thing. This is extremely important. It's your strength. I think that we have all seen what happens to a team or a group when this energy is missing. But you also have to be aware of your weaknesses. Don't let your blind spot sabotage for you. If you let your strength tip over, others might think that you are not serious or reliable. In fact, you talk maybe too much sometimes, especially about yourself. Don't forget to listen. Or you're enthusiastic. You might seem disconnected from reality. Animated, oh, so phony. Spontaneous, ooh, irresponsible. Trusting, naive. You see, there's always the balance. So be self-aware. Now, I don't want to discourage any I with this information. I want you to embrace your strength. Don't be afraid to shine. Be confident, but highly self-aware. Use your strength and influence to lift other people. As an I, if you're in a strict environment, your strengths can be criticized, especially by the more reserved personalities, the more reserved styles. And since your biggest fear is rejection, you will sense this immediately. It's typical an I to say, oh, she doesn't like me, without actually knowing, and then start to dislike this other person just to make sure that the rejection is mutual. And in general, this is true for all the styles. People with another style, especially when it's really the opposite, will easily misunderstand and underestimate us, but they will also admire us, and because of the way we are so natural at something that they might not have. So we can decide to team up and complement each other, or compete on different terms. And I know what I would choose, at least. Look at siblings, partners, or colleagues who are different. When they manage to complement each other, when they see how the other person makes them better, that's when their partnerships are also so successful. The I's are, like the C's, also very creative, but they are creative in different ways. The I is the feeler who think outside the box, and the C is the thinker who sees all the details. So creative in different ways. And creative people are great at building something from scratch. They get energy from that. Don't ever take this for granted if you are good at it, because for some people it's extremely difficult. Most people actually need clear instructions and they want to follow a process. I'm not talented when it comes to drawing or sewing or even playing instruments, but I never saw myself as creative when I was younger. But then I started to look back at my life and to look at how I worked, how I love to build new things and come with ideas. Then I just started to discover something about myself. I'm not so interested in the polishing and the maintenance. I just want to come with ideas, create, and then move on so somebody else can maintain it. So it has always been difficult for me to take a template and use it, or to deliver something when I have received exact instructions. In school, if we were to paint or write an essay or create something, I would never use the examples that the teacher gave. Like, the teachers could give examples of what we could do. That's the last thing I would do. I would pick something on my own. And I could see that other people picked exactly what the teacher suggested, and that was fine too. But that couldn't motivate me. And it can, of course, seem unnecessary to reinvent the wheel each time, but it's obviously one of my strengths. My mind can't accept working with a template. I can find inspiration from it, but I have to rework it. So you see, you need to find these type of things about yourself. What is your thing? And this is why it's so important. And if you are somebody who likes to work with templates and given examples, if you like to work with processes, then you are very efficient with that instead. It probably means that you actually make it even better, making it your own. So honor that. You spend your energy on something else. But if you're creative, like me, someone who can build things from scratch, give space for that in your life and at work. Understand how demotivating it can be for you if you are not allowed to be creative at work. And it might be that you need tools and systems to become more structured and organized. So the D's and the I's, they are also very disorganized. So team up with someone who likes to dig into the details and setting the processes, like the S's also. These people will make sure that your project and your plan is put into place and maintained. These are the processors. Sorry, I'm going to change screen for you. There you go. These are the processors. They will not take any risk. As an S, you are excellent at this. You bring stability. In a room full of D's and the I's, there's a lot of noise, but very little can get done sometimes. So the S's, they will come in and help us and make sure that we stick to the plan. I love working with the S's as well, because they are amazing at putting the dreams into reality. The S would never have thought about flying to the moon, but without them, we would not have had the spaceship. We would have had the vision and the conviction that it's possible. We would be enthusiastic about the dream, but it was the S's and the C's that built Apollo 11. They were the ones that made sure that it came back, because the D's, they had already moved on to the next project, and the I's, they were already popping the champagne when they landed. So diversity and inclusion is key for all teams and projects. The S's, they are easygoing and agreeable, calm, great listeners, very compassionate. They often put other people first. They can have a hard time saying no because they prioritize a peaceful relationship. They hate confrontation. This is why you as an S has to watch out so that you are not being abused and pushed over. If you are an S, I wish for you to be really conscious and proud about your strengths. Even more than the I, you take your strength for granted. You probably think that you are just being nice. That's great. But being genuinely nice, to be a good listener, have an intuition and interest in other people's feelings, is a beautiful quality that everyone does not possess. And this is also why the S can easily be underestimated. And in work life and career building, the consequence could be that you miss out on opportunities just because you don't make as much noise as some other people do. But what you are really good at is relationship building. And that's your gateway to success. Research has found that 85% of job success comes from having well-developed soft skills. LinkedIn reports now that some of the fastest growing job roles, those that can't be taken over by artificial intelligence, are based on soft skills. And this is where you as an S is so important, and where you have an advantage with your natural style. You are authentic when you are being like this. You are sensing and feeling for other people. You are a great mediator. Without you, the chaos can be a fact. So don't let anyone underestimate the importance of this. It can be seen as something that anyone can do, but it's not true. An S in the right place with the right encouragement can do amazing things with other people. Others will turn to you when they need to talk. So you will also know more because you listen and sense, and you are approachable. When an S is feeling very safe and knows exactly what is expected by them, they can be very powerful and great leaders. They bring stability and trust. And as an S, you probably know yourself, but maybe other people don't know this. So I will share it with them that oftentimes the S is the one who knows most of what's going on in the office because they listen and they are approachable. So there might be somebody else who is the boss, but the S knows what's going on. Don't minimize this. Don't confuse it with being soft or weak. Your style is your natural strength, but make sure that you are not being taken advantage of. Just because you don't like confrontation just doesn't mean that you can't say no. So practice the habit of saying no. Be convinced about your priorities and goals so that nobody else takes you on a detour to fulfill theirs. But since your biggest fear is confrontation and loss of security, you will never become a person who finds it easy to express and verbally share your opinions with your team or with management. And that's okay. It goes against your nature, but be self-aware of what's going on in discussions, because sometimes it's not as you think. What happens is that the S protects you as an S, you protect yourself from this fear by withdrawing from the situation, and you stop sharing opinions. And when you don't feel safe, you take a step back. But look at this, see what actually is going on when you start to think that it's unsafe and you think that there is something uncomfortable going on. Maybe the D didn't mean to be so harsh. Maybe the criticism from the C wasn't personal. Maybe the I was just being dramatic. It wasn't about you. You are worthy of the space. Make sure that you are being noticed. Life is not a cake. Even if you take a big piece, there is an abundance left for the rest of us. As an S, you're also incredible with systems. You like to follow a pattern and stick to a routine. And this is so valuable when you compare it with people who are not good at it. I've already mentioned my parents. Thank God they are systematic and organized. My dad is almost a slave under routines. I could check my watch right now and tell you exactly what he's doing and where he is. And it's thanks to them that I'm not completely hopeless. But I don't have it in me naturally. But I was brought up in an environment that gave me role models when it comes to organization, time, and structure. Those are the S's. Thanks, Ivor. Let's move on to the C's. There you go. Now, as I mentioned, my mom is a C. When she does something, it's flawless. And I have always been so astonished that she can grind without losing energy. She's very handy, likes renovation and gardening, and she does it until it's perfect. And she enjoys the process and the perfection. This fulfills her, but it bores me. So I need people like her in my team. Like a typical C, she's also a creative problem solver. She will take her time and find solutions. She is the to-go-to person when we need to think things through. So if you are a C, maybe you have also noticed that people come to you for certain things that they know that you can help them think through. I'm typically a person that will turn to my C colleagues when I have questions and problems that I need help with. So as a C, take this role and show that you are available for this. There are other styles I wouldn't go to if I really want to be sure about the answer I get. At the same time, the fear of criticism is huge for the C. You have a fear of lacking technical knowledge and skills. So when you think there is a slight risk of being wrong, you will not share information details. And I saw this already last year when I was interviewing somebody for a risk manager position. My colleague asked the candidate a specific question on a new regulation, and the candidate didn't want to answer. So my colleague thought that the candidate didn't know or didn't understand the question. But the day after, he came back with an answer like that, very, very accurate. You see, he didn't want to shoot from the hip because he wasn't completely sure. A C will never put time over accuracy. They will always make sure that they are right. They take a pride in being accurate and detailed. So use this strength to be right when it's important. Become known as a reliable source. But even as a C, you are still not perfect. You also have weaknesses and blind spots. Don't let your hunt for perfection and the desire to be right paralyze you or frustrate the people around you. Being right or perfect isn't always the best way to go. So don't let it completely take over. Your sense for details, your analytical style is essential, but it can also make you seem overcritical about others' ideas and behaviors, maybe. Be careful not to be judgmental. Relax about yourself and others. It's okay to sometimes be good enough. Your good enough is anyway going to be much better than anyone else's good enough, probably. So you are unique in the sense that you are very organized and you make sure that you are correct. You find energy when you get plenty of time to dig into something, when you can continue until you are satisfied. So at work, this is also something that can demotivate you when you feel that you can never finalize something, you can never do your best. It can be very demotivating for a C style. And it's so extraordinary about you. This is how you impress people. The D's and the I's, they need your fact checking, your systems and your methods. When you catch their attention, they find you very intellectual and smart. And some can also find you intimidating, maybe because you are known to be a person who never miss the opportunity to correct others and point out their mistakes. So pick your fights. Sometimes it's better to do the right thing rather than to be right. I was talking to an ex-colleague some time ago, and he was laughing because he was reading in his DISC report that the C thinks that if a job is not done right, it should not have been done at all. And he was laughing, thinking, like, who doesn't think that? And I was like, yeah, me. I often put action before perfection. It's just a different style. So remember that most people are not as organized and detail focused as you are. Use your strength to win trust, not to lose relationship. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. As a C, you typically enjoy working alone or just with one person. It's easier for you because you're analytical and you process facts and feelings on the inside. You are not the extrovert who think out loud together with other people. And I know that networking and teamwork can be quite exhausting for you. I have CS-wired friends who they go to conferences because they need to, we all need relationships and networks. And maybe it can be nice in a small dosage. But after a big conference or big gathering, even a party, they are exhausted. They are not the ones that you will find at the evening cocktail afterwards, because then they are drained. They need some space alone. And this is completely normal. So maybe it's comforting for you as a C to hear that this is very normal, but it's also good for all of us, the rest of us, to know that don't push it too hard. I mean, give them space when they have been participating in something where there is a crowd. So even if you are fine to work alone, you are very important to the team. You are the one who brings perspective, reality. When someone has an idea, you are the one who will take your time to think it through. Ask critical questions, relevant questions. You ensure that no details are forgotten. And like I said earlier, the moon landing would only have been a dream if it wasn't for the C's and the S's. Sometimes we can't compromise perfection, right? So use this style of you because it's very unique. Okay? So we're almost done now. I will stop sharing my screen. Here we go. So we're almost done. What has been the most insightful and valuable for you so far? Please share with me in the chat. I would love to hear that. Or even if you want to unmute, go ahead. I would be happy to hear from you. And if you have questions, you can write or just unmute.
Hi, Sophia.
Hi.
I think I can feel my eye color unmuting my mic. And no, thanks Michael for this very interesting way you presented things, because very balanced. Because I think there's always like something very dangerous backfire when you realize, for instance, I would say, oh my God, like every time I talk to a person, I need its approval, or I'm so weak, and then you can be completely depressed. So I think it's always good to know it's a strength, but you have to master it to be able to take the best of it. But I have a question, because so we have different colors, families, but is there a link between, well, a family and maybe more moral characteristic? For instance, will a D person be more selfish than a C person, or that's something that is completely different? Like I have this maybe analogy with a car. We all have different cars. One car can be faster, one can be safer, but at the end, we're all different pilots. So it's the pilot that will drive the car, and the pilot can be like selfish, can be. So how would you link these scholars, families, and more like maybe moral weaknesses and strength?
Yeah. So from the family, definitely. So what is shaping our disc profiles is our DNA, role models, and heritage. Those are the three things that will influence your disc style. But it doesn't mean that because your mom is a D, you will be a D. That's not how it works. It's the positioning in the family that will shape you. Like I said, like my parents, they are more CS or SC style, and I'm an ID. But I'm also the youngest in my family, if that is maybe part of it. My sister is very much a DC personality. So it doesn't mean that you can predict what a style a child in a family could be, but our environment, how we are growing up, what the role models that we see, they definitely influence us. And then as you mature, and also as you go into different roles at work, or even changing work, or as you grow as a person, your disc style can start to move a little bit, but it will never completely change. It's through the self-awareness and your really intention that if you want to, for example, I know somebody who was a very, very strong D. He decided to really practice everything that you can see in an S style, because he felt that he needed to balance his style, but it was very intentional by him. And then what did you say about, selfishness? I think selfishness is more about, self-awareness. And so I don't think that one of the styles can be more selfish, because even though the S might be presented as somebody who is very caring, an S also can be, of course, have a negative influence on a team, because an S who is not feeling safe or comfortable would also be the one who could talk a lot in the backs, because they don't confront. They can, be seen as something that they are not. So I'm not saying that all the S's are like that, but all styles definitely have the dark sides as well. Did that answer your question?
It was very clear. Thanks, Sophia.
Thank you. Okay. So what I hope that you have picked up today is that at work, in what we do, we all have an area where we are best and can shine the brightest. And this is where you find joy, where you get energy instead of losing it. This is where we all belong. We all have this, but you have to find out what it is in your case. Instead of thinking that you are stupid, lazy, crazy, inadequate, or whatever it is that you criticize yourself for, many people go through their whole career, 40 years of their lives, working in an area that only makes them frustrated. These people often have low self-esteem, low self-confidence, because that's the consequence of not using our natural strength. We don't feel competent and empowered when we don't get to work in our strength zone. And our colleagues, our managers, they don't see our true potential when we don't use our strengths. So we will also miss out on promotions and opportunities when we don't show them, and when we're not even aware of them ourselves. And this is so sad, and exactly where I want to help. No one else will see you until you have figured out what your natural strengths are. When you start to use them, you will automatically shine and convince. And this is why I love helping clients with the power assessment tool that you can have a look at via a link that I will share in the chat. So, and I hope that you have picked up something new today. And now when you know this, to see how necessary it is that people around you also remain in their strength zone as much as possible. A more diversified and inclusive workspace will bring out the best in all of us. So thank you so much for listening. If you want to learn more about how you can discover and build on your strengths, you can do your own power disc assessment via the link I shared. And I offer it right now for a very low price. You can't sit and wait for your employer to change or for circumstances to improve. You need to invest in yourself if you want to see real and sustainable change. So let me know if you have questions. I would love to connect with you. So I will stay for a while here, and I will also connect with you over email afterwards. Thank you for your time. I know you're very busy.